You were freed from the spirit of rock and roll. What happened that day?
I was at church on a Sunday morning, and Hills Christian Life Centre, as it was known then, had been advertising for a long time that rock and roll music was evil, that it was the work of Satan. And I recognised one of the leaders who actually was working in radio at the time, and I thought, I'll go up to him and I'll say, this music's okay, isn't it? And he actually turned to me and he said, I need you to be freed from the spirit of rock and roll. He said, I know that you are following one of the high priests of Satan, which is Bruce Springsteen, and you need to go home now and you need to destroy all of that material.
So did you go? You went home and
I went
did
home,
what?
and for about an hour and a half I cried and I cried and I cried, and I ripped all the posters off the wall, and I broke the records. They're actually old records, and I broke them, and I ripped out the cassettes, and I cried and I prayed and I cried, and that was 1987.
Your parents introduced you to the Hills Christian Church when you were young, about 13, and they both were involved in the Pentecostal religion. Now, I want to talk a bit about Pentecostal religion. That is where there is a belief of it's common to find the supernatural in everyday life, and I guess an example of that would be talking in tongues. Is that right?
Glossalia, it's known as.
Glossalia?
That's its formal name,
there you go.
Pentecostalism is very much about a physical experience with the supernatural, be it waving your hands or praying over people, or it's a real embodiment thing, and it is also punctuated by speaking in tongues.
What's it like to experience it?
It's interesting in a church environment where lots of different people are doing it at once. Then it can really be a free-for-all. It can be really scary. Once you're in tune with the culture, though, it seems completely normal. I thought everyone did it as a part of their childhood.
Did you speak in tongues?
Yeah, since I was 8 years old. I had always been raised in a Christian household, and I didn't know any different when I was 8 that we were going to a Pentecostal church. It's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of happiness and fun, and the joy of the Lord is revealed.
You write about it quite movingly, actually. You talk about being on fire for God and how beautiful believing is. Can you explain some of what that beauty is?
It is. It's a very beautiful thing. It's a very simplistic story to believe, but it's all about a very personal and intimate relationship with God. You know, you're part of a big group that is there to save the world and is there to... You know, Hillsong, for example, has always portrayed themselves as a really fun church, very contemporary, and the music's great. You know, who wouldn't want to be there?
You actually say that you don't think you could have written this book without Hillsong Church. In many ways, they made you what you are today. How is that?
It's incredible. You get taught to be absolutely invincible. You get taught that you can overcome anything, that you can achieve anything through God, and it makes you. It makes you feel incredibly courageous and incredibly able to face the world with the power and the spiritual reinforcement that you believe you've been given.
The flip side to the beauty of believing in that sense of invincibility was a fear. You described being terrified and that demons could come in many forms. Where would demons come from?
In the 80s, we were taught pretty much that demons were everywhere. They were hiding behind every tree and every bush, and if you let your guard down for a minute, those demons will come in and possess you and make you do things that you don't want to do.
Okay, so when did the enemy, which is what you refer to Satan as, when did the enemy start whispering doubt into your ear?
I would have been about 16, and I was still at the Hills Christian Life Centre. It was still a fairly small congregation, so there were still maybe 500 people there. And it was all I'd known for these years, and then I just started getting thoughts in my head. These people are crazy.
What was it that you suddenly saw that you thought was crazy?
I would watch people, and it looked like they were participating in some kind of charade. And I didn't know how that was possible. Also, the tongues didn't make sense. Like, I thought, that's really gibberish. That can't be real. Ba, 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 ba is what you hear.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, something's not right here.
When you were 24, you got a social work degree, and you ended up doing some work with the Salvos. And a very interesting phrase, you said, I was detoxed from toxic Christianity.
Yeah.
That's a very strong phrase, toxic Christianity. Is that how you view Pentecostalism at that point?
I have to say I do now. I spent 5 years working alongside Salvation Army officers who have a completely different outlook on what Christianity is. And they're very, very humble people. And they're very, very committed to serving the community.
And how did you see that as different to what you saw at Hillsong?
The Salvation Army are very much geared towards charity and gospel. And Hillsong was very much geared towards money, recruitment and fundraising.
I want to show you a bit of Brian Houston. This is from Australian Story in 2005.
I really have this belief that church should be enjoyed and not endured. Sadly, I think it is possible for church to be a very long hour. I want people to be able to be animated about their worship.
And I love walking into the 6 o'clock service and then bang, getting hit by the presence of God. It's cool. Tell someone next to you it's cool.
You write in the book that even today when you hear Brian's voice, it makes you feel better. How does Brian work for you?
That, when you go to Bible college, apparently you learn that when you say, tell the person next to you, it's just a way for when the pastor's lost his thought train. So turn to the person next to you and say, you look great. He's a very powerful speaker. His content is not very heavy, but he's very charismatic. And, you know, he's a voice of my childhood. He's a voice of, you know, leadership in my upbringing. So, you know, and he always sounds so happy and so pleased to be where he is and so proud of you that you're doing this thing with him that you almost want to be a part of it all over again.